Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you 5 delicious tomato varieties that I think are 100% worth growing. They are all completely different shapes, colors and sizes, but there is something in common that unites these varieties. Their creators have clearly worked hard. Only tasty. Only the ones I liked. Only the ones I want to grow again. What are these varieties? You'll find out right now. Let's not lose a single minute and move on to the review. Tomato Express is on its way. Take your seats. We're getting started. A pleasant and memorable moment of the season was undoubtedly the tomato variety Pineapple Heart Black. Personally, it reminded me of the famous Belgian Ananas Noir, and their colors have a lot in common, but this time, the fruits stand out for their heart-shaped form. I stopped these tall plants at a height of 6 feet 7 inches or 2 meters in mid-August. As it turned out, the variety appeared as a result of a mutation of another, unnamed variety from the collection of Alexei Kulik from Ukraine. And it seems to me that it turned out so good that Pineapple Heart Black is simply a must plant for those who are not yet familiar with it. In addition, not so often I come across heart-shaped tricolored tomatoes. It seems to me that this is still quite a rare phenomenon. Despite the graceful structure of the plants, its heart-shaped varieties, tomatoes are large, and to the upper bunches, their size only increased. And they also shimmered so beautifully in the light of lanterns when I was driving them for tasting through the night city. To be honest, I did not doubt for a second that the tomatoes would turn out to be delicious. And there was every reason for this, in particular in the form of positive reviews from those who had already grown Pineapple Heart Black. The first branches gave me fruits weighing from 9 to 12 ounces or 250 to 350 grams. The next weighed already from almost 13 to 16 ounces or 360 to 452 grams, while the largest tomato reached the mark of quite serious for the heart-shaped variety, 1 pound and 4 ounces or 580 grams. The flesh is certainly beautiful, which for me is probably becoming a rule for green-pink tomatoes. But the flavor is no less bright. Sweet, fruity, it has its own flavor, and with all my vocabulary, I couldn't find the right words to describe it correctly. Simply put, these are exactly the kind of tomatoes you'll want to make a salad with. Also, they are very juicy, and their thin skins don't prevent them from storing quite well. Pineapple Heart Black is a very interesting variety, and I hope that my story will allow more tomato lovers to learn about it, as it 100% deserves it. I was very pleased with these tomatoes and can definitely include it in my list of my favorite heart-shaped varieties. And once again about cherry tomatoes. This time it will be a tomato with multiflora clusters. It's a pleasure to watch them bloom, and when they are also delicious, it's a double plus. Another sensational variety from Poland is called Kozula 14 Megagron. And as for the name, I think it fits very well with the picture that appeared before my eyes when I managed to grow it. The mega huge branches have the capacity to amaze the imagination. In fact, it is an impressive sight to appreciate with your own eyes. At first, a small complex bunch appears, which gradually turns into a blooming monster in a good sense of the word, which seems to be trying to contest the best places in the flower bed. I had certain fears that the plants would just drop flowers. There were too many of them. But in fact, the branches formed a large number of tomatoes, and equally well they formed them both in the greenhouse and outdoors. By the way, when people ask me what my favorite flowers are, Of course, I answer that they are tomato flowers. The plants themselves reached a height of 6 feet 7 inches or 2 meters when grown in 2 stems, and their growth was the same both in the greenhouse and outdoors. The fruits are pear-shaped, bright red, dense, and can hang on the branches for a long time without losing their taste. Without any doubt, a very interesting and unusual variety of cherry tomatoes, which I think will be appreciated by many. To be honest, I thought that because there were so many fruits, they should have grown tiny, but in the case of Kazula 14 Megagron, it doesn't work that way. Only from one single bunch, my first harvest amounted to almost 1 pound and 9 ounces, or 700 grams of cherry fruits. And these were not even all tomatoes. They were only slightly short of the size of the cherry tomatoes I'm used to, with the only difference being that there were much more of them on the branches. And no matter who scares me that Kazula Megagron will not be tasty, I absolutely disagree. Crispy, sweet, excellent cherry, which with its flavor combined with productivity can push many other varieties. With all its advantages, the variety is unpretentious, except that it is desirable to tie these huge branches so that they do not break under their own weight. But in the case of Megagron, it's rather a pleasant hassle. And I have to admit with pleasure that Kozula 410 is another masterpiece by Anna Jankowska, and its gorgeous clusters are driving tomato lovers crazy far beyond the borders of Poland. From Poland, let's move to West Virginia, famous for its wild nature and mountain landscapes, and the homeland of the Hillbilly Potato Leaf tomato. Potato leaf plants reached a height of 4 feet 11 inches or 1.5 meters by mid-August. The tomatoes are flat round, slightly ribbed, bright yellow-orange in color, with pink dashes coming from the center. What I especially liked about this variety is that I picked the fruit in whole bunches, which is not often typical of beefsteak tomatoes. The average weight of the fruits varied around 9 ounces or 250 grams, and they were all about the same size. The only intrigue was their flavor. On the cut, the tomatoes are beautiful, with a palate characteristic of yellow-pink bicolors. The flavor is wonderful, very sweet, with a little acidity, refreshing, definitely enjoyable. Hillbilly Potato Leaf is a great beefsteak variety that you want to eat. The flesh is quite dense and it is pleasant to chew. The fruits also store well. Definitely a very worthy and tasty variety. I don't even know why I so rarely approached it when it was growing in my greenhouse, but in the end it was remembered from the best side. Finding a really tasty and flavorful bicolor that can surprise you after years of tasting a wide variety of tomatoes is not easy. I'm glad I was able to do it with Hillbilly Potato Leaf. It's a great addition to tomatoes such as Virginia Sweets and Oaxacan Jewel, so I give it a huge plus. And let's move on. Of course, in this review, I will not pass over dwarf tomatoes, especially since last year they pleased me all season and only reinforced the belief that my garden will no longer do without representatives of this tomato trend. Another dwarf tomato that leaves different impressions on different people is called Audrey's Love. As for me, I consider this dwarf to be good after all. I don't know whether it was able to gain flavor in my conditions, but it really turned out to be tasty and also very productive. Dwarf Audrey's Love is an all-around positive experience. I don't know why, but with the large number of new dwarf varieties and the limited space for them, I planted 3 plants of Audrey's Love at once, as if I was guided by Providence. for as it turned out, I was not wrong in my choice, and I liked it very much. Plants are not tall, about 3 feet 3 inches or 1 meter, so do not be too zealous with the pruning, especially since the stems are quite thin and the tomato directs most of its energy just to the formation of fruits, which, by the way, are very many. The fruits themselves are elongated, plum-shaped, medium-sized, dense, dark red with green stripes, certainly beautiful. Dwarf Audrey's Love was bred by the Dwarf Tomato Project and named by Robin Board after her mother. Usually in my reviews I try to share my personal experience with this or that variety, and in the case of Dwarf Audrey's Love, it's not a problem at all. I'm completely delighted with the yield, appearance and shape of the fruit, and of course I should note their universal purpose, including the fact that they are suitable for canning. And with the abundance of beefsteak-type dwarfs, this makes Audrey's Love an especially valuable variety personally for me. The tomatoes weighed between 3 and 3.5 ounces, or 76 and 104 grams, which is just the size I look for in tomatoes for whole fruit canning. Is this the only possible purpose for these fruits? Absolutely not. The only point I'm obligated to mention is to never let them overripe, otherwise the flavor is lost. But this happens with many varieties of similar shape. When cut, the fruit has dark maroon flesh, and as for the taste, when fresh, Audrey's Love is a balanced, acidic sweet tomato with a good flavor. The main thing is to pick it in time. I have already sent seeds of this tomato to my friends and acquaintances who were looking for a substitute for the usual determinate varieties, probably because this multi-purpose dwarf is perfect both for eating fresh and for any kind of processing. And now, I want to show you a dark fruited tomato called Sarah Black. This German variety was introduced by Joe Brodka, who in turn received seeds from his grandmother's sister in Germany. Plants about 5 feet 10 inches or 1.8 meters high with a leaf of the regular type, produces fruits of a classic dark color, which fully corresponds to its name. Tomatoes are flat round with dark shoulders and thin skin. Looking ahead, Sarah Black turned out to be one of the most favorite dark-fruited varieties of the season, and this German heirloom is also considered one of the earliest of the so-called full-size dark tomatoes. And indeed so. I tasted the first ripe fruits already on August 1st. The tomatoes weighed from almost 3 to 3.5 ounces, or 200 to 300 plus grams, so I would probably describe their size as average. But does it matter so much when the variety has its own, much more important sides? The deep dark red color of the flesh foreshadowed the bright tomato flavor, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. Sweet, fruity, just a great dark variety. It looked like it should be delicious. I don't know how to explain it. It was probably just a premonition that didn't let me down. Another very good, juicy variety called Sarah Black. And I think many tomato lovers will know about it. It's great for salads, tomato juice or sauce, and of course, for eating fresh. It's definitely one of those varieties you'll want to try again. Okay, on that delicious note, today's review has come to an end. If you haven't watched my previous video for some reason, I encourage you to do so, as in it I talked about the amazing new releases from the Starfighters tomato line, and there you can meet the author of these unique varieties. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and of course, love tomatoes, grow tomatoes. This is the Lucky Garden channel, and see you soon.
Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're.